There we go. Hello and welcome. Jay Fazette here for another episode of the JBology show. And I am here with my dear friend, Peter Sandeen, who is going to wow you, stun you, and inspire you about getting your website up and running and creating leads. How are you today, Peter?
Doing really well. It's been a rather long day. I mean, it's 10 p.m. here, so.
and tell the world where here is.
I'm in Finland.
In Finland. And is it summer still happening and still nice and all that fun stuff
there?
there?
It's still summer, yeah, and it's been a very warm summer. Like, I think record-breaking, or at least some records have been broken.
Well, that's awesome. Awesome. Well, we are, we've had a nice summer with the exception of smoke everywhere for forest fires like you would not believe. So everything has been just a little hazy, but we're just grateful there's some snow. So,
yeah, you do everything bigger there in Americas. I mean, we've had forest fires, but it's been like, it's in the news, but it's nothing that anyone worries about.
Well, at least here, that holds true until the evacuation notices come. I've had a couple of friends who've had a couple of those, and it's like, that gets a little bit creepy. All right. So, gang, let me give you a little bit of background in terms of how this goes. And then Peter's going to fill us in. So short version is this. I'm Jay Fazette. I'm the founder of JBology, the perfect mix of people, fun, and profit. We are a community that helps entrepreneurs and small business owners redesign their business model so that they have a perfectly steady stream of great leads at the front of their business for free. And they have recurring passive income on the back end of their business because of joint ventures, so that really what transpires is this: through collaboration, we solve the problems of our clients better. We make more money. We have more fun. We get to do more great things in the universe. So we do that through things like this show, where we feature brilliant people who can help you grow your business. We do that through our event, JBology Live, which is a 3-day joint venture intensive where you'll meet about 150 people who want to serve, support, partner with you. We do that through our year-long consulting programs called Flow, Sail, Business Builders Basics, and a variety of other pieces. But most importantly, we create this community. And we have about 500 people in our community that come together to collaborate, understanding how to work best with one another. So what we're going to do today is this. I am going to play our little video intro in a moment or two. And then Peter is going to give us the 5,000-foot view of what he does, how he does it, and how he can support you with one of your most important tools or one of your most important resources for business building, which is, of course, your website. And just for a little bit of fun and entertainment, how he's going to do that is he's going to review one of my websites that we have not really updated for a very long time. And I'm gonna put my own stuff on the line to understand and to get real live feedback right out of the gate. And I just am having a little trouble finding. Looks like my team has added like a whole whack more videos in our StreamYard here. So I'm going to play a quick short one, and then we're going to come back with Peter. Oh, one other thing. We share these things all over God's green earth. So if you want to interact with us, if you want to ask Peter a question, if you want to comment, please click on the video or the little right above the video. It says Jay Fazette, and it'll take you to the broadcast page where we can chat back and forth. All right, watch this. My technology is not cooperating today very well. Maybe you're not watching this. I'll click it again for the 13th time. That was just plain weird. I just saw like the last little bit of it. So who knows what's going on with the internet today, but we're not going to worry too much about it. All right, Peter, please give our community the 5,000-foot view of who you are, who you serve, and what you do.
Well, I started out in copywriting and conversion optimization. And then when I started to see more and more that what really matters on websites of any type is not design, not where you put the forms or what the button color is and such, but rather what is it really that you're saying to people? What is it that people understand when they come to the website? I started to focus on that pretty exclusively. So what do you need to actually say with your marketing so that people understand what they need to understand so that they want to buy? How to make them see that what you offer is something they genuinely want, not just valuable, but something desirable for them, and why you're the best option for them. And that's really what I've been doing ever since. And about 60-70% of my clients are marketing experts, many very well-known ones, many not so well-known ones. And that's primarily because all the marketing experts know how much of an impact it makes. And they also know how freaking hard it is to do for yourself, because when you're inside of the box, it's hard to read the label outside of it. But yeah, that's my primary thing. And websites are just the most obvious place for where you have to like apply that to.
So just on that note, talk to me a little bit about the, it's really difficult from you being inside the box. Why is it those of us that create our own content, create our own programs, create all those things, why is it that we have so much damn trouble with this? You would think that it should be pretty straightforward if we're the program designer or the content creator, that yet we still struggle like mad.
Yeah, I think the main problem is that you know your own thing far too well. So you don't have to wonder, why is this feature important, or why is this other feature important, or what's the benefit of getting this sort of coaching or that sort of consulting, or why is it important or business revolutionizing or life-changing to do X or solve this problem instead of any other problem the potential client could have. All these things are so obvious to us because we've created it, because we are so into it. So because we create 1,000 blog posts and whatever, we know it too well. So it just becomes harder and harder to see objectively from the potential customer's view. What people usually do is ask their customers or their clients, well, why did you buy? And that's positive, but people who have already bought already have a completely different perspective to it than people who are still thinking of buying. So that can be very misleading as well. So getting someone to look at it from a fresh perspective who actually focuses on that is, yeah, that's why a lot of experts come to me. But the other clients are anything from like total beginners with e-commerce or SaaS or business consulting, or to multi-7-figure businesses, and like anything and everything. It's the same thing in every single industry. You have to figure out what it is that makes other people understand what you already know.
Got it. And I, it's funny because while it seems so obvious, it is so complex and difficult. Like I think the longer we do something, the more transparent it becomes to ourselves. I certainly know that I suffered from that tremendously in my personal development company, which we did for 25 or 30 years. And honestly, at the end, it was like, duh, like this is how it should, this isn't rocket science, but for somebody who is uninitiated, it can be incredibly, incredibly difficult. So yeah. I absolutely love that. So, I am trying to share my screen, and my machine has decided, oh, there we go. I think we got a little bit of cooperation here, ever so slowly. Because I want to get the site up. Now, if you were to give like just a couple of key tips or tricks for websites that you see most commonly aren't handled well, while I pull up our page for you to educate me. Where would you start in terms of like just the basics?
Well, I think one thing that can help is to first think, and this is just a thinking exercise. This is not something you actually put on the website, but think of, if you could only tell people one thing, what should it be? What would get them to want to work with you? What would get them to actually get the sense of like, oh, this is something I really want to see more of, or this could be really good for me, or I see why this is unique compared to anything else I could get in this same sort of industry. If you had only one sentence, then what would be that one thing you would try to get people to understand? That's not what you should do on the website. It's a very common thing to do, to have this massive banner area with one sentence that's maybe 3 or 5 words long. Like, that's not efficient. It can work. I'm not saying that, but I am arguing that that's probably never the best option, and that's extremely difficult to make work. But if you just start by this exercise of, well, if I could only get people to understand one thing, what could it be? What could actually get them to want what I offer? And then avoid anything that you think your competitors could say the same way. And it can be a pretty difficult exercise to do, but if you can't answer it, then you're in trouble.
I love that. Okay, so Shall I open that page? I think I have technology cooperating for me, and thank goodness we're recording this, because this has been. And by the way, I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate you being willing to take a peek at this, because I know that this is due for an update. And you know, when something works reasonably well, it's sort of like the squeaky wheel gets the grease. This hasn't been so squeaky for us, but I do know that we could do better. So I'm going to bring it up here, and there we go. Come on, camper. As soon as I start sharing, the thing is lagging quite tremendously. So if you can just be a little patient with me. Come on.
Well, you can tell me, what is the page?
Okay, we can start there for sure. So this page is JBology Live, and this is our primary event that, I sometimes say to folks in our world that all roads lead to Rome. And what I mean by that is that our digital programs include a ticket to this event. When I'm speaking on people's stage, whatever we sell and offer there always include a ticket to this event. We sell the event independently and on its own through JVs and just straight through the page. And, on average, we put, I think last year we sold probably 750 or 800 tickets in total for live virtual events. And that we did 5 courses last year. So our average is somewhere in the 125 to 220 tickets, something like that. So that's its basics. Need to know more?
Yeah, so I have more specific questions. So first of all, is this a sales page? Is this meant for people who already know who you are, people who are already interested in JBology Live, who basically know what it's about and are basically here just to be convinced that they should really come there? Or is this something where you drive fairly cold traffic, or what's the role of the page?
Great question, and we use it for both of those purposes.
Okay,
you should not have separate
you should not. Yeah, that's, I'd argue, is almost impossible to do well. It's probably possible, but incredibly difficult. Okay, before we get any deeper into the roast, just how rare do you want this, or how polite should I be? I mean, I know you're Canadian, so should I say sorry every other sentence? So like rare, medium rare, well done.
So I prefer my steak medium rare, but in this case, you give it to me well done, because here's the honest goodness truth about this. And gang, for any of you who have thoughts, comments, any of those sorts of things, please come on over, make it, share what you got to share. But because here's the thing, is that to me, there's no point in going through this unless we can really tap into your expertise and your perspective. And even, and I want to be clear with you, is that lots of our decisions are made from a perspective of efficiency, not effectiveness. So like back when we were designing this program, for example, it's like, do we have one for cold traffic? Do we have, and I'm like, bite me. I'm not maintaining 2 of these things. It's like, if they can't figure out that they should get some JV partners, they're not smart enough to come to our event. And I know that's not the right approach. I totally get that. Just give it to me straight, and you don't have to say sorry. If I start crying, then you can probably pull it back a little bit.
Okay. So I'll wait for the tears. Until then, I'll be honest.
Exactly.
You've done a lot of things really, really well on the page. But which of those audiences is more important for you? People who are not yet really familiar with this whole thing, or people who are very familiar? Because it's a completely different audience, and you should honestly have 2 separate pages. And I can't really review this from both perspectives unless we do it twice.
So here's the honest to goodness truth. When we designed this, it has changed. So when we originally designed this, Peter, I was of the mind that it was most important for our community members to make sure that they showed up at the event. So they've already bought a ticket, or they bought an event, they bought a program that has a ticket. We want them to get their ass there and actually take advantage of it. And we want them to share this page with their friends, saying, it's like, this thing rocked my world, and I got more JVs in these 3 days than I have anywhere else. So it was really from the perspective of our existing clients. Now, so that was the lens through which we designed it. Here's the truth for us, is that we have an incredibly high reattendance rate because people get incredible results. And the incredibly high reattendance rate is fantastic for the people who show up at the event. Not so good for us for selling our premium program because most of them have already bought it. So we actually need to change it. And our lens and our effectiveness has been diminishing in the new traffic area because that wasn't our primary task when we designed it.
Yeah, that's what I would have guessed. My assumption was that this is not at all for cold traffic, but what if we look at it from the perspective of cold traffic or relatively cold traffic? Because I think that's anyway where most people are, and like most likely anyway with their website. So first big issue, a lot of people don't know what joint ventures are, or if they do, they think they do, they're actually wrong a little bit. And the way they're wrong about it usually means they don't think it would work for them. Mm-hmm. So if you start by saying that they will get all these benefits by leveraging the power of joint ventures, a lot of people will immediately just tune out. Okay. If you tell them something about joint ventures, I think in the headline, for example, you need to somehow challenge the idea that that's not for me. Because a lot of people are like, well, I couldn't find joint venture partners. I'm not ready for that. That's not for me, or it sounds too difficult, or I don't know where to find. I mean, there's all these excuses immediately against this tactic.
Our number one excuse, the number one thing is I'm not ready. I need to finish my book, my digital program, my event before I can do this. And it's like, no, you need relationships first. But that is our number one thing. So we should address that right out of the gate.
Yeah. Especially if you already have validated that is the excuse, then it might even be that start challenging that. That can be an approach. I'm not saying it's an easy one and it's not the only one, but that's an alternative. But just saying the word joint ventures with a lot of claims around it, a lot of very positive claims, it works for people who already know joint ventures, actually know what they mean, and can see the many different variations of what it could mean for them. But otherwise, a very risky headline. I think the sub-headline is brilliant, like saying that, well, even if you don't have a big list, don't know any industry leaders, or don't have a hot product to sell. I think that's a really good idea that you are addressing those, but it's so small that it honestly took me this long to notice it. Okay. So like if the headline doesn't get people interested, and besides, there's a lot of really cool things about joint ventures compared to advertising or podcasts or videos or blogging or all these other things. But still, you're saying exactly the same sort of thing that you could just say, like you could change that headline and say leveraging the power of advertising, or leveraging the power of podcasts, or leveraging the power of insert whatever generic tactic. Whereas joint ventures have really, really good things. So lead with those. Like you could come up with very good headlines around, well, make sales before you don't pay anything unless you sell things. Yeah. You don't have to talk to people who are not already interested in what you do. There's all these things that joint ventures enable that you could lead with and you could get people interested in with. If this is still the same video that I've seen, it's really good, but it might also be a little early. And if I remember it correctly, and there's, by the way, a reason why I haven't watched it now for this review, and I'll go through it in a moment. But if I remember correctly, there are things that you could address there a little better, like potential objections and so on. But it felt, I think, a little bit too much, just too full on. It's the same thing. There's a big button that says "Get your ticket." And it's like, I have no idea what we're talking about by the time I see "Get your ticket." So it's a little early. But yeah, the reason why I didn't watch the video to remind myself is that most people don't start watching the video. Okay. Even if you make it like the only thing on the page, a lot of people won't start watching it. So you cannot rely on it. Like, it's good to have a video. Those who start watching it are much more convinced by it. That's really good to have a video, but you cannot rely on it. And that's a very common mistake people make because they are used to watching videos. Mm-hmm. Or they just think that, well, if I put a video here, of course people will watch it. And if I ask, well, do you always watch a video if you see one? Then no. But yeah, you're now kind of relying on the video to do a lot of the heavy lifting, but you cannot. You just can't expect everyone to watch it.
Okay.
Then if we scroll a little bit down, we get to the tickets, and it's a little bit hard to understand the difference between the regular tickets and the VIP tickets, especially since you lead with click here to get it instead of what's the difference. So like, I know that there are the differences and I know that they are listed there, but you first ask people to buy and then you're like, oh, well, if you scroll this far, then maybe you want to know actually what you're buying, like the difference. And also, I'd argue, I don't remember how you do it on the video, but I think instead of just making a difference of listing like the features, you should explain what's the outcome difference. Why is there two different options? Because people, I'm sure you've told this to 100 people. Don't talk about features, talk about benefits, talk about outcomes. But here you are talking about just features. Explain why should someone buy the VIP ticket? What is the outcome difference they can get with it? Because otherwise it's like, well, video interview on Facebook. Well, is it going to be seen by 2 people or 5,000 people, or posting interview on YouTube? Again, is anyone going to see it? Featured VIP web page with your video, like what does that mean? Like, I mean, all of this just questions, nothing concrete. I don't see why would I buy the VIP ticket. So we can scroll on, but I think if we're thinking of this as for relatively cold audience, the main problem is that you're jumping to the sale too quickly without giving people the option of doing something else first. You can make sales. I don't doubt that at all. You can make sales with this sort of page. Absolutely you can, and I'm sure you have, to a completely cold audience. But you're very likely to get more sales if you would lead with an opt-in offer. So people would get to your email list, they would get something free that's valuable, that would actually give them a sense of, well, this is what I can get from you. And you can teach some really good stuff in a very short time. So it could be a 5-minute video where you go through some simple part of like addressing some objection, essentially. Like if one of the objections is that, well, I don't have a product that I can yet like sell. So these are not relevant. Well, the video could be how to do joint ventures before you have a product ready. And then you have a quick introduction to, well, here are 5 different ways you can do joint ventures before your video is, or your product is ready. And then at the end, hey, if you want to learn more, here's where you can come and actually do all those things. And now watch this video about JBology live.
Peter, quick question. So, and it's not coming up now because I clicked away from it trying to get this set up for you when I was having a little trouble. But we have a pop-up that comes up if somebody leaves the page that says, hey, do you want a training? And it's actually more comprehensive. It's like the 5 pillars of, we call it the joint venture success wheel. It's a 1-hour training, workbook, assessment, it's a lot. What's your opinion of trying to catch them on the way out as opposed to the way in if we have not won them over?
It's better than nothing. Like, you should generally have an exit pop-up, even though I think they're kind of annoying. Everyone says they're kind of annoying, but they also kind of work. So you can have them. We can talk about what you're offering as a separate thing, because that's also a very, very big part of how well you convert people. But most people will not react to the exit pop-up at all. And I think for me, it actually accidentally opened. I don't know if I accidentally moved my mouse up or something, but it opened. And before I realized what it is, I had already closed it by complete automation. And a lot of people do that. So just the pop-up, not enough. It can help, but not enough. And as a side note, an hour of training, most people will not go through that, even if they do opt in. And if they don't go through the free thing, they will very, very likely not even think of buying from you. Because the feeling is that, well, I didn't even bother going through 1 hour of training from you. So why would I buy a 3-day ticket? I mean, you don't even get to the sales pitch if they don't get to the end of that. So I would do something much shorter. Like, there's a time and a place for a webinar, for example, or a long video, but as a rule, it's a very tricky thing to do well. You can do it well, but it's a very tricky thing to do well. It's usually better to do a very short video that addresses a very quick thing. like a very one singular thing, and people can feel like, oh, that was really cool. I had never thought of that way. And like, yeah, okay, tell me more. Like that's what you're trying to get to. You have that, like you're at the perfect spot on the page now. So you are addressing the basic questions of, well, what are joint ventures and so on. But all of this should be in the beginning. Like these are the things that people would need to understand in the early parts of this, not once you've already told them that, hey, here's 2 different options, buy one of these. I mean, if you're basically writing a sales page, but how often do you see a sales page that starts with buy now? Like that's just not how you do it. So if you're doing this for a cold audience, I would restructure the entire page. There's a lot of really good parts in it, and you can probably reuse some of it, maybe a lot of it. But I would basically start from scratch, think of the structure, and then look at, well, is there something you can bring from the existing page?
Okay.
And basically just start from where are they now? So if it's for cold audience, they're thinking of just their business. Their trouble growing it. They're hoping that they find something that would help them and would be different from the other stuff they've seen. Because if they've already seen it, it hasn't worked. So it has to be something different. Hence, you have to get people to see it's different early on. And joint ventures have a lot of very true. You're not reaching for some random small difference. You have very meaningful, unique parts about joint ventures. So leading with those and helping people see that joint ventures are a very different approach to business and marketing than advertising or most of the content creation stuff and funnels and all these things. Joint ventures are very different. So help them understand that very early and then start leading to the sale. Or preferably, I would recommend you build a small funnel. It doesn't have to be some, if you look at the funnel experts, they build these like massive funnels and then they say it's easy. And it took them 6 months to do, and they hired 3 companies to help them with it. I mean, like, come on, it's ridiculous. You can build a simple funnel. Like, I mean, I help people do that, but like, I really mean a simple funnel, not 3 video series leading into a 4th video and a webinar and an ebook and 1,600 emails and all that. Like, no. Just a short video, quick sales pitch. Then this page is fine. But like, just lead with a little bit of something else to ease them in.
And I think what transpires, we have something like that, which we have a variety of different lead magnets. So we've got something called Escape the Marginal Success Trap, the joint venture success wheel, and the ultimate joint venture checklist. And all 3 of those, opt-in, piece, email, funnel, head to this page. But again, we're using the page for the 2 different audiences.
Yeah. I don't know about your numbers, obviously. I have no clue. But if you don't see those funnels working very well, then I think one issue might be that you're not creating content that would very naturally, that's wrong to say. It obviously naturally leads forward to the JBology Live, but it doesn't necessarily create the sense of, okay, I got one very clear piece and I no longer have objections to it. So if you create, this gets a little more complex, but you can do this, definitely. So the whole point of a funnel is to get past all the objections. Another way to look at that is that the point of a funnel is to create all the beliefs people have to have for them to buy.
Okay.
So if you think of, first thing they have to believe, for example, could be that this is like joint ventures could help me. If they don't believe that, they're not going to opt in for anything related to joint ventures. So you first have to get them to believe that. Then you have to get them to believe the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And only once they already believe all the things they need to believe to buy, it doesn't make any sense to offer them the chance to buy any sooner than that. And this page obviously doesn't do that. But if you notice that your opt-in offers don't also convert really well into sales, even if you get people to opt in, then there's some objection left, or there's some belief they don't have that they should have for them to buy.
See, and I think honestly, Peter, is that we do not spend much time on objections. It's like, do you want free leads? Yes. get your ass over here. This isn't rocket science. So I think that one of my big takeaways from this conversation is that if people aren't familiar, they have objections that we need to hold their hand through. And what seems obvious to me and to us and to the community isn't always particularly for cold traffic.
Yeah, and even if it is that they basically know what you're talking about, so they know joint ventures could work for them, they still have, let's not call it objections, because that can be misleading. So it can be just a belief that isn't there yet. So for example, they would have to believe that spending 3 days at the live event will actually create results for them. If it doesn't, then why would they show up? So it's not an objection in the sense that they would be consciously thinking that, well, it's too much time. Like they might have that, but they don't necessarily have that. They can be just thinking that, well, or not even thinking. They just have this sense of like, nah, it doesn't sound right. It doesn't make sense for me. So going through it as like, well, let's list out all the objections and answer them in an FAQ, not necessarily at all the point, but rather go through the objections or the beliefs before people sort of think of them themselves.
And I think there's an FAQ on this page, but let me just see. And again, like that's just another good sign of how long ago we did this. I don't even know for sure. Let me just see.
I don't think there is an FAQ. But yeah, like instead of turning this into sort of a sales page critique, I think looking at it from a slightly bigger perspective or like makes more sense. It applies to more people anyway. So if you think of it as one page of a funnel, because that's what a homepage is, or any page is. It might not be built into a funnel, but it is still one page that people see on their way to hopefully buying from you. Yeah. The goal of the page is to get them to take the next step. If you don't offer them a step they're willing to take, you've lost them. So on a page like this, this is clearly a sales page. So then think of it as a sales page. Write it like a normal sales page. And that means very different structure. You don't offer the chance to buy immediately unless it is for a super warm audience coming from a webinar or something. And that's not the case here at all. So just like accept that, okay, it's a sales page, and then make it a sales page. And then for the cold audience, think of it as cold audience. And okay, they need something else. And the freebies you now have might be good. I haven't seen them. I can't say if they are good. But if you notice that they are not converting well, even if you get, let's say, 100 people to get an opt-in and none of them buys, something's very, very wrong there. Like what I aim for is at least 5% of those people who opt in to buy. Like that's a minimum that I would aim for. 10% is very realistic. 15 starts to be high. So like sometimes much more actually, but like if you don't see those sorts of numbers, then something is wrong. And often a big part of it is that you've thought that, okay, I'm going to give this super valuable big thing for people, but they don't consume it. And when they don't consume it, you've lost them for like much more so than if you would have given them some tiny thing that they would have consumed. So be mindful of it. So like when you were now talking about the joint venture wheel, was it that it's an hour of training? Yeah. Sounds great. Sounds like a really valuable thing. Have it as a bonus when people buy something. Don't offer it as a freebie. Like that's my thinking. That like approach it in a different way. Think of it as, well, I need them to take this step, which is to opt in to get something. And I need them to also take the next step from there. If that's a really big thing for them to do, they won't do it. If there's an hour of training, it's a big thing and they're stuck. And like, this is how I approach websites overall. Like you have to give them the sense of like, okay, I see what this is. I see I want it. I see what makes it different. And I see there's an easy, appealing next step towards buying. And whatever you offer should make it very easy for them to then take another step towards buying. It's not enough that it's appealing and easy to take. That's the random PDF or video training. So you can convert people to that, but getting leads like that is not nearly as valuable as getting leads who are taking steps forward from there.
Yeah, it's interesting because even your conversation about just calling this calling this a sales page, is that in my head, this has always been a registration page. It's like, go there and register, click the button, send your goddamn money, and let's get on with the show here. You need leads, we've got people, go.
Yeah. Very classic J thinking.
Yes, it is. Yes, said no one ever who's ever hung around with me for a little bit. Shall I scroll down, or where are you at, brother? I mean, because obviously there's another opportunity to click the button here.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing. Genuinely, that's a good thing. But yeah, I mean, a lot of I can see that this is an old page. I'm sure you would do better now. Like some of these are fairly clear things, like that don't tell features, tell benefits. Like these are not things that you wouldn't tell to a coaching client, but these are exactly the sorts of things that are super easy to forget when you're doing your own thing. So I'm not blaming you. Most of my clients are marketing experts, and this is not at all uncommon. This is not even remotely the worst highly paid experts homepage I've looked at in the last 10 days. So I've done a few of these roasts in the last 10 days, but still, it's not at all bad, but the role it has now doesn't really work. That's, I think, the bigger takeaway here.
And tell me seriously, how many? I'm just going to pull this down while we're talking. How many people are running? And I know, my efficiency versus effectiveness conversation. How many people really do have 2 pages? If you have an event, how many people are running 2 pages, cold traffic, warm traffic pages? That just seems like a pain in the ass to me, to be perfectly honest.
I'd say nearly everyone who does it at a scale, but I think they approach it a little differently.
Okay.
So they don't necessarily have 2 different pages, but they have 2 different routes there. So for the very warm traffic, they are sent directly to the sales page. The cold traffic goes through some form of funnel. It can be super short, simple, and all that, but there's something before the sales page that gets them ready for the sale. So it's not that you have 2 separate sales pages necessarily. I'd say most people don't. It would be very, very few who do, and I don't think that's really necessary at all. You can definitely write the same sales page for both.
Yeah.
It's not optimal, but again, it's more efficient, and that's really what I'm going after as well. What's the efficient way to go? But for me, efficiency means highest return for given how much resources it takes. It's not just the fastest. But yeah, I think most people would have something ahead of the sales page, and because it just makes such a big difference. And clearly you do as well, but you don't always use it, it seems.
But I mean, it is very contextual. So it's am I speaking on somebody's stage? Am I on a podcast where we always try and match. So which of the 3 lead-ins? And it is clear to me, Peter, that we could weave those things together as, I would call them 3 hyper simple funnels. But most of the time for me, what happens is that they hear me speak, I teach a segment, I offer a freebie, it'll land them at the page at some stage of the game. And we truly do not track that stuff anywhere near as well as we should. The truth of the matter is that I was speaking at an event in England on last Friday. There were 12 people there, and 5 of them bought VIP tickets. And I just that it's just in my head of this. We know this number of people. We know this happened. Yeah, we're in the range. Carry on. So we don't pay enough attention to those details. Is the honest God truth.
Yeah. But those are if you're talking on a podcast or talking at an event, completely different situation. It seems very similar, but there's a massive difference in how engaged people are. Also, if people are listening to a podcast, I'd be rather surprised if you could make consistent sales directly from a podcast, unless you're selling something ridiculously cheap. And I mean, much cheaper than JBology Live, and something easier to buy. So I'd argue that if you're on a podcast, offer a freebie. If you're speaking at an event, then definitely try to make a direct sale. That can work much better.
Yeah, agreed. And we can track back, just going back to podcast topics, and because we do custom links and those sorts of things, that those things are converting, never as directly as speaking at an event, obviously, but yes.
Yeah. And that's one of the things. It can be very misleading because you do get sales. And that's sort of like, I can see you're not the only one who's like telling me that, no, but I get sales. And I'm like, I don't doubt that. I just doubt that you're making nearly as many sales as you could.
Yeah. And that's why I want to do this. And I appreciate your feedback. The key to me, and this is where I was getting to the two different pages, is that, simply put, for our business and a bunch of the shit we're building, is that our complexity continues to grow, and it's a pain in my ass, is the honest God truth. And we're just at a spot where it's like, no, we're not doing that. Like literally, we have a giveaway coming up shortly, and one of our really proactive and amazing team members created all new icons for it, so it looks great. And it's like, yeah, but now we have to update that on 72 pages. It's like, no, like thank you for the idea, but we're leaving that shit the way that it is because that's a make work project. Would it be great? Yes. Do we have to? Hell no. So I'm really at this spot of trying to streamline better, and that doesn't always work out that well, just frankly.
Yeah. Like, I commend you for doing that. That's usually what I end up coaching people with, even experts, especially experts in a way, because experts have 1,000 ideas of what they could do, and they try to pursue far too many of those. So they need someone to be like, nope, that's a good idea. You don't have time for it. Like, no. But yeah, it's good that you're doing that and seeing that, well, even though we now have new icons, it doesn't still make sense to, like, it's sunk cost. It doesn't make sense just because you spent this time. It doesn't make sense to spend even more time doing that. And the same thing applies to the website a lot. Like, people often think that it's a massive project to change their website. Like, no, like last time I updated my own, redesigned it basically entirely, took me like, I don't know, 7 hours. All new videos, all new pages, everything. So like, if you know what you're doing and you do just what you actually need to do, it's not a big project. Same thing here. I don't think it would be a weeks-long project or months-long project if you just do the few things you need to do and you could see significant gains. Does it necessarily become a top priority? I don't know. That depends on what the other priorities are. If you have something else that can easily create a 5 or 6 figure increase, brilliant, go with that. But if you don't have those, then it would make sense, I think, to build rethink the funnel and just maybe go through it more with thought and see, could we improve this significantly, or what are the odds that we could improve this significantly? How much time would it take? What are the odds and all that?
I bet for us it probably front to back, it's a 3 or 4 hour job. Like looking for the FAQs. I know we have an email that addresses FAQs, so that should be as simple as finding the email and plunking it in here. So I think we have a whole bunch of those pieces that are around, but not necessarily well integrated.
Yeah, and like, you could do a lot with just that, and just restructuring the page a little so that maybe the first 300 words are not yet buy now, but rather like building the idea, and like just have a small intro. Even that can do a big difference on your conversion rates. So it wouldn't have to be a huge project. And if you add the opt-in in front of it, or redo something like that, again, not weeks, but hours of work. So it's hard to tell from this, but I'd say this doesn't work for cold traffic. Like, yes, you make some sales, but you could make 10 times that many sales for cold traffic, maybe 20. So I think it would be probably worth doing, especially if you notice more and more of we get more of the same people coming to the events, and since they already all bought the high ticket stuff, it's hard to sell them the same stuff again. So need to do something.
Without a doubt. And that is 100% true for us, is that we have, we must expand that piece. So without a doubt, I will. I have notes from the conversation. We will dive into it further. So this kind of a process where you review all of these things, you have a link that I'm about to put in the chat for people to check out. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what that is, what they get, how they can find out more? Because the truth is, this is a process that we should all be doing with our websites on a consistent and regular basis. Like this. Just to put that in perspective, this site would have been created I think updated 2018, 2019. Like it's been there for 3-4 years for sure.
It's 2 years since 2019, by the way, but
well, it's 2018, 20. I don't know exactly when I was done.
Yeah, okay.
I don't keep that.
I just couldn't let it slide. Sorry. But yeah, so the link goes to a page where people can get a video I recorded while I redid my own website. It's just me sort of talking through what am I doing, why am I doing things in this order, what am I focusing on, some common mistakes that I'm avoiding, and also like what am I not spending my time on. So for example, I'm not looking at design almost at all because design was not the limiting factor. I'm not looking at making major technology changes because that was not the limiting factor. So and that's usually the case. And anyway, if those are limiting factors, they should be dealt with very simply. But yeah, anyway, it's a video where I just go through what am I looking at, what are the key things, how to think about it, what not to look at. But yeah,
wait, I'll tell you what I love about that, and what I love about this conversation, Peter, is that it seems so many of our clients, particularly if they're early in their stages, are looking for the tell me what to do as opposed to teach me how to think. And the teach me how to think process always creates a better entrepreneur. So I love that. And I put the link in the chat, gang. So you just click on that link, scootle off to Peter's website, grab that and watch it. And then if people want to do work with you, I'm assuming there's going to be some form of a follow-up there. So they can say, hey, can you come share your perspective on this and all of those pieces?
Yep. So the video is about 45 minutes. After that, around 45 minutes, I do tell about my online course that goes through the website process. But yeah, 45 minutes is just my process. It just made sense to talk about the course at the end. And if someone wants different sort of help from me, just send me an email. I mean, you'll get my email when you sign up or just opt in to get the video. Awesome. I'm happy to help at very different stages. Some of my clients are just getting started. Others are making multiple seven figures. So like I'm happy to adjust how I help so that it makes sense for very different types of businesses. Whether it is a roast like this, where we actually look at a page in much more detail and I write a report about it, or I can redo your website for you if you want, and anything in between. But yeah, happy to help, or at least happy to talk about how I could help.
Love that. Okay, so a couple of things. For those of you who are in the JBology community, let you know that Peter's actually going to be hosting one of our tech and strategy calls at the JBology Global Lounge, which is coming up in, I can't keep track of the dates.
3 weeks or so, something like that.
Exactly. So he's going to be doing that. I think we're also going to be doing a webinar where we get to pick your brain a little bit further and in greater depth and detail, I think is coming up as well. And I think you're attending JBology Live coming in September as well. So it'll be another great way to connect.
Maybe. I'm not quite sure. Maybe.
Okay. He's going to be around somehow, somewhere. We just got to figure out all the dates and the details and those sorts of things. But here's the truth of the matter. We can all use support and assistance in terms of the context and the framing around our websites and our messaging. And I really appreciate your input and feedback about this. It has been on the table for discussion around the team for oh God, it's probably been a year. So we will apply much of your suggestions, and I'll probably run it past you again before we're press and post.
Yeah, happy to take a look for you.
Okay, take care, Peter. You have a fantastic day, and gang, grab his gift at the link in the chat, and we will see you all soon.
All right, bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.